So, for example, Pennsylvania, in between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, you have a vast sort of patchwork quilt of small communities that have accepted fly ash, has accepted sludge, which is, you know, human waste, essentially, has accepted, I mean, we're talking tons and tons and tons of this stuff. In this one community that we cover in Tamaqua, they have 23 fly ash pits that are unlined. So all those heavy metals are going into the water, and they have a cancer cluster. And these poor people who honestly weren't environmentalists, none of these people started out being environmentalists. They're just dying. I'm saying, why do we all have a rare form of blood cancer that happens to 1 in 200,000 people? But we all have it. So through figuring out how to protect their health, safety, and welfare, they discover all of these things, these horrors that are literally in their backyards, and they have no power to stop it. So they've decided to fight back.
And what strikes me about it is we as Americans, you know, not necessarily people watching their news online or digging deeper, but when we see these reports on television, it's like unnamed, faceless people dying of cancer. You don't see them because they're in the hospital, and we don't really need to pay attention to them. And yet, this is killing people, and our government does nothing.
And that's where I've arrived. It's somewhat of a, we're living in a moral conundrum, because if I think, you know, I live in a bubble, in a bubble, in a bubble. Everything seems fine where we live. But I know that my neighbor, which I consider someone in Alabama my neighbor, the people in Pennsylvania my neighbor, they're dying because of the benefits that we all receive. Which, again, if we take it a step further, we don't have to structure our society this way, nor do we have to structure our energy this way. We don't need coal-fired power plants anymore. So these people are really ingesting the toxic waste of the Industrial Revolution still. And we don't, you know, they themselves in Ohio, they want to move to renewable energy. Why? Because they don't want to have their neighborhoods fracked. We visited Broadview Heights, Tish O'Dell. They have 90 wells in a suburban community. So they're literally, so to your point on the poor communities, absolutely, there's Cancer Alley in Louisiana, Texas. All these poor communities have been ingesting all these toxins all this time, but guess what? They're now moving into middle-class neighborhoods. They're now moving in, even in California. There's a huge war right now over California in terms of drilling and fracking in California. We are going to see frack wells in LA closer and closer to where, let's say, the rich people live.
Seriously?
Yes, if we don't watch out.
Wait,
right now it's in California, Baldwin Hills.
That is suffering from a drought, and we're not allowed to water our lawns, but we can take millions of gallons of water and inject it into our tectonically unstable state.
And we're watering our crops with frack water. I think you've heard of that. We have been watering our crops with frack water. Right now, I think it's an end game. We're at the end of this period of industrialization, of depending on fossil fuels. We have to move to renewables for the climate discussion. We have to move in that direction. And in the meantime, the companies are really trying to exploit those last places, California being one of them.
Now, let's open it up and make it a little bigger.
Okay.
Okay, because right now we're talking about individual people in poor communities being exploited by large corporations. And I got to say, what really crossed my mind watching your movie, it's not mentioned, but it's almost like colonialism. The people who live in these communities do not matter. What matters is the offices in Houston, New York, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Yeah. And no one else really matters. Their survival doesn't matter. Their health doesn't matter. They are the nameless, faceless interior of the country that's exploited by large cities and the elite.
Yes.
Am I wrong in thinking that? Or
it's called sacrifice zones. And in fact, some of the people that live in these sacrifice zones are proud of it. Some of them say, we're patriots. We're going to take one for the team. We're going to get cancer, but you know that's okay because we're patriots. And we're letting you drill in our community so we don't have to go to the Middle East. So there are some people, and what I think is amazing is that the human spirit is so, in some ways, positive. And most people will just make the best of it. They actually make the best of a horrible situation, and they don't even want to really believe that it's that bad, even though it's happening to them. So to me, it's actually a testament to the human spirit that they're actually have survived this long under these circumstances. And of course, there's a heavy dose of propaganda that goes along with it. I mean, companies come in, they give them, you know, like they were telling me in Wilmington that the refinery lets the local community come into the refinery on July 4th, and they give them free bags of popcorn, and they can climb up one of the towers and look around. And that's a privilege.
Are you serious?
That's what Ashley told me.
And
Yes.
how many people do this?
whole-
How many
it's
people are
like
like, oh, dude, I can go there and get cancer right at the source with a free bag of popcorn? Sign me up. I mean, how many people are really doing that?
All of them. I mean, it's the neighborhood thing. It's fun. It's the more that I do documentaries, the more that I look at the human condition and where we are right now, which is in a state of transition and chaos. It's that people want it to be okay, so that they can sleep at night, you know, and so they'll make up all sorts of reasons why it's okay, even though it's not.